they right to be so concerned?
Well, I think I'm afraid to say they really are deeply misinformed.
For all the outrage over farmers having to pay inheritance tax at 20% rather than 40%, drip by drip, information has slowly been revealed that it's not as catastrophic as it first appeared, and that maybe Labour were really taking aim at rich people buying land and claiming it as a farm to avoid paying inheritance tax. Here's Professor Richard Murphy absolutely destroying the myths around farmers and inheritance tax that have been blown out of all proportion by the right-wing press.
The first thing is that, in fact, we're talking about £3 million of relief being available to farmers, and that's not even true, because the true figure is £5 million, because farmers are also able to claim business property relief as well as agricultural property relief. So the figures that we were hearing earlier on from somebody who was saying, well, let's include the cattle, let's include the crops, let's include the feed, let's include the equipment, all that is subject to another million for each person on top of that. And by the way, your organisation says that on their website, Victoria. So let's not beat around the bush here.
It's included.
You agree with that?
The BPR is included. It's not a separate allowance. It's included in the same allowance.
No, it isn't. It's an additional allowance, and you say so on your own website. So
and of course,
I've checked with the revenue manual. Now let's move on from that, because they are separate reliefs. One is on agricultural property, one is on business property. But the figures are reliable, and the figures are not from 1 year. The figures have come over a long period of time. But let's just stand back a minute and let's just talk about the reality of this, shall we? And let's just do some simple economics. The fact is that over the last 20 years, the price of agricultural land has skyrocketed. And I've known the price of agricultural land for nearly 50 years because I've been an East Anglian for a very long time and first prepared farm accounts when I was quite young in the 1970s, when land was going for next to nothing. And now it's going for over £10,000 an acre here. In Northern Ireland, it's £16,000 an acre, but admittedly, farms there are much smaller. The fact of the matter is, however, that we have not got data to prove that more than 400 or 500 farms a year are claiming agricultural property relief. And this has been going back over several years, and the people who are buying farms
Richard,
now
can I just
are
interrupt
the
there,
likes of Jeremy Clarkson.
Yeah,
so we
Richard,
are actually simply subsidising farms. Can I just make the obvious point? Nobody has to be a farmer. Nobody asks anyone to be a farmer. And anybody who's a farmer who doesn't like this can sell up and make over £100,000 a year.
All right, I'm going to put that to Jacob. Jacob, you don't have to be a farmer. You can do something else.
Perfectly acceptable that every farmer could go and do something else, but then who's going to feed the nation? It's as simple as that. Who's going to feed the nation, Richard? Nobody's going to get into a business to earn nothing.
No, this is another nonsense argument, because in fact, what we're finding is that agricultural land is worth a lot of money because people are buying it. And when they buy it to claim agricultural property relief for inheritance tax purposes, they have to farm it. Nobody has ever bought a farm and left it to sit aside, unless, of course, they are claiming set aside and rewilding.
Click here for Clarkson's absolutely pathetic excuse for buying a farm.